website. Listen to the people that speak for them. There are some very, very shadowy, dodgy people involved in this. This is about bringing about the end of Western civilization as we know it, not about racial equality. And we should absolutely not be backing the Black Lives Matter movement. Now, if you're with us, if you're enjoying this, if you think more people should be able to engage in this debate, please share this right now with your friends, with your family, with your associates. A lot of you, by the way, have logged on already, but share it so that more people can hear an alternative view, because they're not going to hear it on the BBC. They're not going to hear it on Sky News. They're not going to hear it on most of our broadcast media, who incidentally have levels of public trust in them that are collapsing with every single week that goes by. Dot asks me, how can we tackle this awful infiltration of our education establishments by the Marxists? Well, this goes hand in glove, Dot, with the previous question. I mean, we seem to have a young generation who've been brought up, certainly in a very different way to me. I remember as a kid, teenager, in the playground, you'd argue with people, you'd disagree with people, and you'd say, well, I can say what I want. It's a free country. It's a free country. That was what we believed when I was young. And it's a free country meant you could say within reason what you liked, even if other people didn't like it. It's called free speech. It's called liberty. It's called democracy. And you can argue that we fought 2 very expensive world wars so that we and much of the rest of the world could go on enjoying those freedoms. And yet, there is a younger generation amongst whom a huge number seem to think that diversity is everything unless it comes to diversity of thought and opinion. And then they say things not like it's a free country, but you can't say that. You can't say that. It's against the law. You can't say that to me. I know my rights. There is a massive cultural change that has gone on. It seems that a very large number of young people do not judge free speech, do not judge freedom of expression as being basic, fundamental human rights and liberties. They look at it the other way round, that they think they've got an ability to silence those who do not share the same opinion. It's called the cancel culture. And you'll see it's now not just happening to people in the public space of politics and current affairs. It's happening to actresses. It's happening to authors like J.K. Rowling, where they happen to say something that the mob don't like, and the mob want them to be closed down. And Dot, at the heart of this are our educational establishments who are not teaching critical thinking. They're not teaching people, here's a problem, here's an issue, here are 2 approaches to it, you choose which is the one that you believe in. They're being taught, here's a problem, here's an issue, here's one response that is virtuous and good and correct, and here's another which makes you more or less like a supporter of the Nazis. And I have to say that our university education system, heavily publicly funded, is not doing its job of teaching critical thinking. And I genuinely think we ought to re-examine why public money should go into organisations that have a political opinion. Don't forget, 21 vice-chancellors of British universities, without any reference to their boards, came out in favour of Remain during the referendum. Enough said. Let's move on. Peter asks me, are you streaming from your local pub just to annoy the mainstream media? Wasn't it interesting that I went to the pub on Saturday at midday, queued up outside, followed the arrows and stood where I was supposed to stand and sign my name in the book as if they didn't know me anyway, and went in, had a drink, and left half an hour later or so. Really interesting, the reopening of pubs and the media response to it. The sort of London view is that people that go to pubs are just subhuman, working class thickos. They look down upon people that go to the pub. They laugh about people that go to the pub. They're sort of knuckle draggers. And it's why comedy programs parody Tim Martin, the boss of Wetherspoons. Although, I mean, I can see why Tim could be parodied because he's a big, exceptional looking guy. But it's all about the fact that to those in the media set, pubs are there for a subculture. They are much better than that. They go to wine bars, they go to Soho, they go to places full of lovely darlings, and pubs are for the plebs. And it's one of the reasons why, I was so cartooned and mocked and parodied for going to the pub. But I mean, not that I minded. I mean, it was quite flattering in a way. So part of what happened on Saturday was this sort of form of media snobbery about going to the pub. Oh my God, look, there's Nigel Farage. He's going to the pub. Isn't it simply ghastly? And yet when it comes to election time, you now see the mainstream politicians turn up in pubs and they stand there with a pint and look around looking like lemons because they don't really know exactly where they are because it's not their normal habitat. I like pubs because I reckon they're pretty classless. I like pubs because you can have a good debate. I like pubs because you can have a good laugh. And I like pubs because every pub in this country is a parliament. It's in pubs where we discuss current issues. Everything from the England football team manager to is the local vicar any good or is he a Marxist? Right, let's move on. Judy asks me, will you open up your own radio show? Well, look, since I was last with you, I'm no longer on LBC at 6 o'clock Monday to Thursday and Sunday mornings 10 till 12. That has come to an end. The contract was drawing to a close, although I have to say I did think it would be renewed. I had been at LBC for 3.5 years. I took it incredibly seriously. I worked very hard at it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I bitterly regret that it's come to an end as abruptly as it has, but I'm not going to say any more about it. I think that the world is too full of people who, after a dispute, a fallout with an employer or in a relationship, want to rush off and write newspaper articles and cause headlines. I enjoyed my 3.5 years there. I very much regret I'm not there now. Junie, in terms of where I'm going to go from, well, look, I like broadcasting, whether it's here on Facebook, whether it's on television, whether it's to a public audience, whether it's an after-dinner speech, or whether it's radio. But I happen to think that talk radio is rather important because we can access talk radio in our cars, in our kitchen, working in our sheds and garages, with sort of an earpiece in, sitting on a train, going to work. We can access radio in a way that we can't access television. And I've always thought that radio was very much the intelligent medium, a place that was there for debate. And the honest answer to the question is, I am keen to do radio again, very keen indeed. Exactly how I'm going to do it, where I'm going to do it, well, I'm working on loads of ideas at the moment, but I'm not going to rush anything, but I will be back. Craig asks me, where do you get your inspiration from? Well, gin mostly, Craig. No, Craig, I get my inspiration. Do you know, it's funny. When you've been doing this as long as I have, and when you've been subject to as much abuse as I have, and I do think there was a period from about 2013 right through 2016 when I think I took more abuse than anybody in the public space has in modern times. And I really mean that. It was a constant daily diet. And it doesn't matter how tough you are, doesn't matter how much you believe in what you're doing, there are times when you think, why the hell am I doing this? And my inspiration comes from just decent, ordinary people, whether I meet them in the street, whether I meet them at the petrol station, whether I meet them in the pub, whether it's a letter or an email that I got this morning from somebody. And I wrote back, thank you, that's an inspiration. My inspiration has always come from good, ordinary, decent, law-abiding, tax-paying people, patriotic people who believe in their country and who have been, over the last few decades, so badly let down by career politicians and indeed by much of mainstream media. And my inspiration genuinely comes from them and from their support, because it makes me realise it actually is worth doing. And kind of that night, 23rd, 24th of June 2016, sort of proved that, didn't it? that despite everything that had been said about Brexit, about me, about all the